agency, LGU, and multi-sectoral alliances. People participate
responsibility, yung hindi naman kayang gawin. Ito lang coastal management, mabigat na to eh. O sasamahan pa natin ng integrated ecosystem management. Kasama na diyan ang ano eh, ang pati yung pag-manage ng basura, 'di ba? Hindi na kaya 'yan. So, if the coastal areas are affected by basura, meron na kami napasa na bill dyan yung extended producer responsibility. Usually, ang pumupunta sa coastal area ay plastic. Yun ang pumapatay sa mga mga fish. Kaya ngayon, nagpasa na tayo ng extended producer responsibility because we are a sachet economy. So, ang mga tinatapon nila, yung mga sachet. So, ngayon, we're giving the responsibility to the manufacturer of sachet that they have to process their waste. Kahit na naipagbili nila to other people, it's still their responsibility because they are required to do that in Europe. So, if they can do it in Europe, itong malalaking kumpanya to, they can do that in the Philippines. So, kaya yung ganon, ibang law na yun. Kasi kung pagsasama-samahin natin dito, mawawalan tayo ng focus.
Thank you for that. We actually have also, if I may cut short my presentation. Sorry if I may cut short my presentation, ma'am. We also agreed that actually we have a secondary position, which is that, and we do agree that we would integrate the National Coastal Greenbelt plans, which are covered and proposed under this bill, particularly the provisions relating to the formulation of the National Coastal Greenbelt Action Plan, and the DSUD would support the passage of a bill and work closely with the Senate and other legislations for the formulation of this plan. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Can you just submit your position paper? So we now call on DILG.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. The Department of the Interior and Local Government fully supports the passage of the bills on Integrated Coastal Management Act and the National Coastal Greenbelt Act of 2025. The initiatives of the department, one of the initiatives of the department on coastal management is the development of the fisheries compliance audit. It was first introduced in 2018 pursuant to the Republic Act 7160 or the Local Government Code and the Republic Act 8550 or the Fisheries Code as amended by Republic Act 10654. The fisheries compliance audit is intended to be used by the local government units, the national government agencies, and partner organizations as an assessment tool, a planning tool, and a monitoring tool. As an assessment tool, this validates the status of LGU's compliance with their mandates on the management of municipal waters in accordance.
What did you say that you are trying to implement the fisheries code?
The fisheries compliance audit, ma'am.
Fisheries compliance audit based on what law?
On the local government code and the fisheries code.
Fisheries. Hindi ba pinasa natin sa fisheries, IUUF? Yung ba yun?
Sige po. So the fisheries compliance audit po is an assessment tool that validates the status of LGU's compliance with their mandates.
What is the law that we pass with regards to that fishery compliance audit?
The fisheries code po, 8550 and or 810654.
Check my. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this is also a planning tool, particularly forming part of the situational analysis, an important planning reference to implement necessary programs, projects, and activities that aim to address
you're asking the local government to implement this fisheries compliance audit?
The DILG, ma'am, implements the
I-
fisheries compliance audit. This is
Who implements, the local government or DILG?
the DILG, ma'am, as a monitoring tool with their
And you're
compliance.
saying that the local government is implementing this?
Their mandates, ma'am, on based on the fisheries
What
code.
local government is implementing this? Our local government?
All coastal governments, ma'am, within the
Eh,
Philippines.
kami coastal rin kami.
Yes, ma'am, including
O, eh,
the
bakit
Las
wala
Piñas.
ganyan?
You do have, ma'am, sa Las Piñas po. We yearly assess po the 5 coastal cities in the National Capital Region, including
Can
Las
you give me
Piñas.
the report on that?
Yes, ma'am, sure po.
Wala ako.
We also have a report, ma'am, on the nationwide total of 930 coastal LGUs. Sige po, ma'am. We will furnish you a copy po.
Nag-implement yan sa Las Piñas? Anong office sa local government?
Sa Mau po, ma'am.
Ano?
Sa agriculture po, city agriculture, kay Doc
Eh,
Min po.
hindi nga. Nag-aano lang siya. Tinanong ko siya kung ano ginagawa niya. Wala naman siya sinasabing fishery. Sabi
Yes,
niya,
ma'am.
nag-aano siya ng aso.
Opo, kasi city vet din po siya as far as I know. Opo.
So why are you saying that they are implementing?
Ma'am, actually, ma'am,
Siya eh. Kaya nung pagkakausap ko sa kanya, di ko na siya kinausap uli.
I also worked in Central Las Piñas before, ma'am.
Oh.
So, yun po, na-assess ko po sila. Actually, the city of Las Piñas, hindi po nila masyadong ganun ka-alam yung fisheries compliance audit. Pero nung na-validate po naman sila, parang doon din
Meron
sila
kaming Las
na-inform.
Piñas Parañaque Wetland Park eh. Wala, bihira naman. The only one in Metro Manila.
Mhm.
So, dapat kami ang pinakamagaling, di ba? Kasi meron kami. The only one in Metro Manila. So, one of the most important wetland in the world. Wala akong nadidinig na may fisheries doon.
Actually, ma'am, yung Las Piñas po, I think they enacted their municipal fisheries ordinance last year lang din po, 2023.
May municipal fisheries
Yes po.
ordinance.
Opo. Newly enacted lang din po.
Hindi ko nakita yun. Alam ko, gusto nila ipa-reclaim yung aming fisheries eh.
Yes.
Ano nilagay nila sa ordinance, ipa-reclaim yung aming fisheries, yung aming bay,
Hindi
yung
naman.
Manila Bay. At yun ang nilagay nila sa ordinance. So, yun nga eh, tayo nga daw ang the biggest mussel producer in the Philippines. Tahong. Yun ang pinakamalaking produce ng Bacoor Bay. Kasi we're part of that Bacoor Bay. O tapos merong fisheries code ang Las Piñas, ha? Ngayon ko lang nadinig yun.
Fisheries kasi meron silang mandate to regulate the municipal waters. Pero wala tayong
This is the Philippine Fisheries Code of 1998. It's not a local bill. Diba? Parang yung local government is mandated to protect its municipal waters. Oo, yun ang gusto nga nilang pa-reclaim yung municipal water. Mawawala na kami ng municipal water. They're not there to protect it. They're there to destroy it. So. And I think many of the municipal waters in the Philippines are being destroyed, di ba? Pati yung Iloilo, magre-reclamation na rin sila, di ba? Iloilo City, nabasa ko eh. Lahat sila magre-reclamation na. So, ano ilalagay natin dito sa ating coastal management, pagbabawal natin? Okay, go ahead, Iyo.
And to constantly remind our LGUs po of their standing mandates to ensure that fishery laws and policies are enforced, followed, and implemented within their areas of jurisdiction, the DILG issued memorandum circulars po. These memorandum circulars po, one is the guidelines on the implementation of the fisheries compliance audit, policy and guidelines on the regulation and monitoring of fishery activities in the municipal water. We issued the LGUs directing the to participate and support the DAB4 rollout pursuant to DA FAO number 260 or the establishment of fisheries management areas, the fisheries compliance audit validation process in the Manila Bay watershed area, the reiteration of the DILG MC 2018-147, and the guidelines in the enactment and or updating of municipal fisheries ordinance.
So
So,
that's all.
allow me to finish, ma'am. So, this FishCA po, it utilizes an audit tool din po, which is being basically recalibrated as needed in collaboration with the National Validation Team. These are composed of various national government agencies and non-government organizations. The NVT regularly convene po yearly, and we also have the FishCA Award, the recognition and incentive component of the FishCA initiated last 2020. This is to acknowledge the high-level compliance of Philippine fisheries laws and best practices on marine and aquatic resources management that LGUs have exhibited. And in relation to the roles of the LGUs in the management of municipal waters, the FishCA that focus on basic mandates of LGUs which have opportunities for recalibration to expand other pertinent responsibilities covered by the Fisheries Code. And first, these are the indicators po that being assessed during the compliance audit po. So, first is the Municipal City Fisheries Ordinance. LGUs dapat po they have enacted their own municipal fisheries ordinance. Second is the delineation of their municipal waters with the help from the DNR NAMRIA. Third is the Coastal Resource Management Plan. It should be integrated within their CLUP or CDP or also standalone plan. And the ordinance on IUUF, creation of municipal or city pharmacies, the fishery law enforcement officers or yung bantay dagat po, the registry of municipal fisher folk and fishing vessels and gears, issuance of auxiliary invoices, functional post-harvest facilities, provision of technical supports by the LGU to our small-scale fisher folks, the collaboration on coastal resource management. So, yun po yung mga indicators that being assessed po during the audit.
Can you submit what you have said so we will check if that is really being implemented in the local level?
Yes, ma'am. We will submit po the nationwide fisheries compliance audit and the validation assessment in the Manila Bay watershed area. Thank you po.
We go now to the Department of Public Works.
Good morning, Madam Chair of the Committee on Environment, Natural Resources and Climate Change, and fellow government servants. Let me allow me, Madam Chair, to have the presentation on behalf of the DPWH on our comments on the Integrated Coastal Management Act and the National Green Belt Act. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. On the Integrated Coastal Management Act, we actually suggest the inclusion of the Secretary of the DPWH as core member of the National Coordinating Committee, considering the DPWH as an infrastructure agency has direct concerns on disaster risk reduction and management as well as infrastructure development in coastal areas. For example, we build coastal protection facilities and coastal highways in said areas. So we suggest inclusion here in Senate Bills number 126 and 1342. Next is that we agree.
What do you think of magpunta ako sa summer and Leyte during Yolanda. Lahat ng bayan na may mangrove forest sa coast na safe from Yolanda. Tapos yung wala, pinasok sila. And then paglabas, dala lahat ang bahay, dala lahat ang tao. So what do you think na di ba mas maganda yung mangrove forest kesa magtayo tayo ng mga coastal na protection ng DPWH na kaya mamahal tapos hindi nakakaya yung Kasi sa amin may ginawa sila na kayo DPWH na river ano, isang bagyo lang nagiba lahat eh. Oh, so tapos nakita ko yung sa Yolanda na lahat ng may coastal mangrove forest doon, hindi na damage ng Yolanda. So what do you think of that? Na baka better pa magtanim na lang tayo ng mangrove along the coast kaysa mag-build tayo ng DPWH coast protection.
Yes, Madam Chair. Most probably it would depend on the extremity or scale of the storm surges or even tsunami in any case. So it will depend on the it will all
pero kung
depend on
halimbawa
the site.
magtatanim ka lang ng mangrove, di ba mura lang yon? O kaysa mag-finance ka ng ano, dapat may opinion kayo dyan para makatipid tayo kasi para encourage natin yung mga tao na magtanim na lang ng mangrove along the coast. Tapos nakaka-produce pa ng isda yung mangrove forest along the coast. Dapat mag-aral na rin kayo niyan para alam nyo kung ano i-advise nyo. Kasi ako from my experience, mas matindi ang protection from mangrove forest kesa ano. Let's ask yung mga expert dito. What do you think about ano? Kasi nakita ko yun sa Summer Leyte noon, lahat na may mangrove forest sa coast, hindi na damage ng Yolanda. Lahat ng wala eh, pinasok ng typhoon surge. Tapos yan din na experience namin dito sa, kaya kami yung buong Las Piñas, Parañaque may mangrove forest kasi nakita ko eh. Kaya we're always planting mangroves kasi parang tingin ko mas malaki pa protection niya kaysa yung tayuan mo ng ano, ng infrastructure protection.
Green infrastructure. Tapos
Oo.
yun, sa
So
kanila
dapat
green.
mag-opinion kayo dyan para, di ba, mas tingin ko mas mura magtanim ng mangrove kasi pag ano, pag yung infrastructure nyo mahal eh. Oh, pero okay lang yun kung gagawa ng kalye, pero pag hindi gagawa ng kalye, baka mas maganda tamnan na lang ng mangrove kasi baka mas better, mas sturdy. Oh. I just want your opinion on that. Can you do an opinion on that? Ano yung ano ng mangrove compared to ano DPWH na slope protection? Kasi sa amin yung ginawa ng DPWH sa Bacoor site, isang bagyo lang bumagsak lahat. Oh. Yung amin sa Las Piñas hindi bumagsak kasi nilagyan namin ng kalye. So talagang pinagbuti yung aming slope protection kasi it will support a road. Pero yung Bacoor, it's just supporting walang road, bumagsak. So what do you think of that?
Madam Chair,
Pwede
basically.
ba aralan mo yun?
Yes, basically, Madam Chair, in the DPWH, because we're preparing what we call the flood risk management master plans, we basically have both structural and non-structural measures. And as part of the non-structural measures, including the nature-based solutions, we also want to promote mangroves, the development of mangroves or propagation. Later in the presentation, we will have an example of our ADB-assisted project to show that we just don't build green infrastructure, but also we resort to green infrastructure for such cases. May I be allowed to continue, Madam Chair? For the next one is that we agree on that the side of the elements of the national ICM framework, that the components of the framework should be specifically mentioned, already mentioned in Senate Bills 126 and 1342. Starting with the goals and objectives, strategies and action plans, required policy or legislation, information and public awareness campaign, financing mechanism, and capacity building and national ICM training program. This is for the purpose to ensure that the framework will be operational. Next, which is not cited here, is that we recommend the post-evaluation assessment of implemented projects under the program as additional function of the regional provincial city or municipal development council to ensure or even to verify the effectivity of such program. Next, this slide, okay. So for this slide, so under section 8, powers functions of the National Coordinating Committee on the ICM of Senate Bills number 2397 and House Bill 7767. We suggest to include dredging permits, clearances among the permits issued by the government, in addition to foreshore lease agreements, forest management agreements, special land use permits, and mining permits. It is for the reason that we believe that dredging within the waterways of the river basin would really affect the transport of sediments going even to our coastal area. So sometimes this causes coastal erosion in some of our coastal areas in the Philippines. Next is that we note that following elements of the National ICM framework covers or is related to our ongoing, DPWH ongoing JICA Technical Cooperation Project for capacity development in coastal engineering for disaster resiliency. So mainly the capacity building programs and or development of coastal and marine spatial planning tools, knowledge management research and development program. Next slide, please. So basically, this is our technical cooperation project wherein the overall goal is to have the disaster risk in the coastal area is reduced by countermeasures of coastal management and or improved condition of infrastructure. So our project goal, which is the short term, which is within the 5 years duration of the study of the technical cooperation, is that DPWH capacity on coastal management is strengthened through human resource development and development of technical guidelines. Basically, this technical cooperation project includes lectures, seminars, case studies, development of guidelines in planning and design of coastal infrastructure. One worth to note is that JICA experts basically, one of the JICA experts that was dispatched for this project basically believed that we should have our infrastructure offset towards the land to allow a sandy beach to be present in our coastal area. So that's one thing that we want to consider in our planning and design of coastal facilities. Next, we have our comments on the next slide, please. These are comments on the National Greenbelt Act. So under the relevant provisions of the Greenbelt Act, which is the operational plan, this is on the creation of the National Coastal Greenbelt Action Plan or the National Coastal Greenbelt Management Plan. It is suggested to also introduce potential structural interventions that will support or promote the growth of mangroves and other beach forest species. For example, we have the root program. Also, in addition to that, we found out that under the act that breakwater was considered as an illegal structure, and we hope maybe this should not be classified as such, as this breakwater basically is to protect our coastlines from strong storm surges. So that's one of our recommendations. Basically, Madam Chair, that we also have maybe a more detailed list of our position or comments on our December 12, 2023 letter address to you, Madam Chair. Then finally, we will have an image of the root model I was referring to. This root program is basically, it's a structural intervention, but it aims to promote the growth of our mangroves. Basically, if these new mangroves how do you call it? Young mangroves, it's basically our position on the Integrated Coastal Management Act, the department strongly supports the proposed act, which provides a holistic and sustainable approach to coastal management. It supports the implementation of the national ICM framework and local ICM plans and promotion of ICM best practices. For the National Greenbelt Act, the department strongly supports the proposed act, which designates areas for coastal greenbelts designed to prevent coastal erosion and mitigate the impacts of natural coastal hazards on human lives and properties, as it complements DPWH efforts in coastal disaster mitigation and resiliency. Finally, of course, there were recommendations to consolidate both bills into one. So that is basically our position of the DPWH. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Can you submit that?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Now we hear from the NEDA. No. It's Climate Change Commission.
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Romel Antonio Cuenca, Deputy Executive Director of the Climate Change Commission. In behalf of the CCC, we thank the Senate Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Climate Change, especially through its esteemed chair, for the opportunity to share our views and to be part of the discussions today. We like to say that as far back as 2022, the CCC has issued its official position paper on the proposed ICM Act, and these have been since updated with the issuance of other newly issued national guidance documents. The Climate Change Commission would like to say that it strongly supports the implementation of the proposed measures on integrated coastal management and the National Coastal Greenbelt, as both initiatives align with 6 out of the 7 thematic priorities of the National Climate Change Action Plan. And these 6 thematic priorities are food security, water sufficiency, the environment and ecological stability, human security, climate smart industries and services, and knowledge and capacity development. The Climate Change Commission acknowledges the significance of ICMA and NCGA to further strengthen coastal management frameworks, enhance government agencies and stakeholders' coordination, and promote intensive conservation and sustainable coastal resources. These proposed measures also align with the Philippines' commitments under the international agreements such as the Paris Agreement and the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. This is, of course, also aligned, and we'd like to emphasize this, with the recently issued Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028. Further, one of the key sectors identified in what will eventually be formally launched, Philippines National Adaptation Plan, or NAP, is the ecosystems and biodiversity sector. With the worsening climate trends causing severe impacts on Philippine ecosystems, biodiversity, and overall ecological stability, if not addressed promptly, the National Adaptation Plan identified strategies to safeguard and nurture biodiversity, restoring and sustaining natural assets, which target the following outcomes. First, ecosystems accounts developed and regularly updated to monitor and enhance regulating services for adaptation. Second, protected and rehabilitated biodiversity across habitats and ecosystems. And third, enabled and empowered communities to lead ecological management. We have more specific points which we'd like the committee to consider, Madam Chair, but we have submitted this with our position paper dated yesterday, and we have submitted this to the Honorable Committee, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for the space.
Okay. Maybe you could submit something more, wag yung generalized principle. You can submit some projects that you want to do from the Climate Change Commission. Kasi ako, yung lahat ng under sa akin, I asked them to do something particular in a community that I can see that you are helping the environment. Kasi I don't see this in the Climate Commission. Parang mas international kayo eh. Punta kayo ng punta sa abroad. Oo. Hindi kayo bumababa sa Pilipinas at pinakikita nyo what Climate Change Commission can do for the people. yung ano, magpakita lang kayo sa akin ng ganon para makita ko yung ano nyo, yung effect nyo sa ordinary people dito sa Pilipinas. So, kasi yun ang comment sa inyo masyadong international.
Thank you, Madam.
Biski tong yung position paper, para nahihirapan ako intindihin. Oo. Gusto ko mas ano lang, mas down to earth na position paper kahit na alam ko hindi naman malaki yung inyong agency, but give me an example of what you can do to help the environment of the Philippines. Yung ganun lang.
Certainly,
Oo.
Madam Chair.
Especially dito sa coastal area, 'di ba? Kasi ang problem natin sa coastal area is climate change. Parang sea level rise at saka extreme weather. Maybe you can suggest how we will partially solve this sea level rise and or in your own way, sea level rise and extreme weather conditions. Kasi yan ang problema. In fact, lahat ng nasa coast yan ang kinatatakutan. Yung sea level rise. That in the future, masyadong tataas yung sea level natin. And then, that will enter. Parang sinasabi nila, bumababa yung soil, tumataas yung water. After a while, ang laki ng water, kasi kumukuha tayo ng water sa soil eh. So bumababa. It's like in Metro Manila, the level of the soil is going down and the sea is going up. So talagang flooding yan after a while. So I just want you to have an opinion on what project we should do to not really to completely solve this, but to make some difference that this will not happen in the future. I don't think it will happen in my lifetime, but I don't want it to happen to my children, diba? So yun lang.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll certainly do that. We agree with the Chair's observation, sea level rise, and we'd like to input also that with the Philippines, we're 3 times the global average in terms of the effects of sea level rise.
Yeah, sobra.
Yes,
Oo,
kung
kaya
33
nakakatakot.
centimeters, yes, sa ibang,
Ang prediction nila sa Metro Manila.
yes po.
Just like I went to Indonesia, I was invited to observe kasi they're good in coconut and intercropping with cacao, diba? So I went there to see. I went to an island and that island disappeared. Oh, and now they're transferring the capital of Indonesia from Jakarta to another place because Jakarta is sinking. And there is a prediction that Metro Manila will sink also. So maybe you can have an opinion on that, and then you propose to us what we can do to mitigate that. So,
We shall be happy to.
from the Climate Change Commission.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for the guidance. We shall be happy to do that and give you a more detailed report on what we can do for our local communities.
Thank you. We now hear from NEDA.
Good morning, Madam Chair. On behalf of NEDA, we would like to raise the following general comments and recommendations on the proposed bills. In general, the overall intent of the bills to ensure sustainable management of the country's coastal and marine environment and resources through the adoption of integrated coastal management as a national strategy is aligned with our National Development Trust espoused in the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028, in particular Chapters 5, Modernize Agriculture and Agribusiness, and Chapter 15, Accelerate Climate Action and Strengthen Disaster Risk Resilience. In particular, the passage of the ICM will contribute towards developing the blue economy, including the promotion of viable livelihood options for coastal communities. It will also strengthen the capacity of LGUs and communities in disaster prevention and preparedness, intensify ecosystem protection, rehabilitation and management, and promote and expand natural resource-based industries and enterprises. Moreover, the enactment of the ICM Act is among the priority legislative agenda in the PDP 2023 to 2028. Given the common objective of the bills, we recommend consolidating the bills into one. At present, Senate Bill 2397 may be considered as the working draft, considering its clear and comprehensive provisions, particularly on underscoring sustainable management in related ecosystems aside from coastal ecosystems. In addition, Senate Bill 2397 has already incorporated previous comments submitted by the NEDA to the counterpart bills filed in the House of Representatives during the 18th and 19th Congresses, which include enhancing the policy statement, scope, and coverage, powers and functions of the National Coordinating Committee, the National ICM Framework, and elements of the National ICM Framework, revisiting the ICM best practices following Section 4 on the implementation of ICM programs of Executive Order 533, Series of 2006, and also including the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development as member of the National Coordinating Committee, and including a provision on the prohibited acts. Notwithstanding, the following are our comments to further enhance Senate Bill 2397. These are consistent with the approved position or comments previously submitted by NEDA in 2023. On the National Coastal Greenbelt Act Action Plan, Section 31, and the Local Coastal Greenbelt Plan, Section 34, we recommend integrating the elements of the national and local coastal Greenbelt Action Plans into existing comprehensive land use plans instead of formulating a separate plan focusing on coastal Greenbelt. This is to streamline the number of plans to be developed by LGUs, considering that at present there are already numerous plans developed at the local level. In fact, the DILG estimates that LGUs are mandated to prepare around 33 sectoral and thematic plans. Moreover, the development of a separate plan contradicts the ridge-to-reef approach, which stresses the collaboration and interdependency among LGUs spanning across ecosystems. With this, we suggest integrating the elements or expected contents of the National Coastal Greenbelt Action Plan and the Local Coastal Greenbelt Action Plan into the elements of the National ICM Framework, Section 9 of Senate Bill 2397. On the coordination of ICM programs, plans, and activities at the city and municipal levels, Section 13, and ICM Office, Section 14, we suggest merging similar provisions in the bill that can be streamlined further to avoid duplication of functions among offices involved. For instance, the institutional arrangements and proposed functions at the city and municipal levels concerning the coordination and monitoring of ICM-related activities, plans, and programs as espoused under Section 15 of Senate Bill 2397 may be combined with the proposed similar functions of the ICM office that will be established under the Provincial Development Council as indicated under Section 17 of the same bill. Madam Chair, the NEDA will submit its signed position paper since we received new input this morning. So we will consolidate and submit to your office. Thank you.
My only comment is you're very specific and very supportive of the land use plan. Ang problema ng land use plan, hindi naman beggars cannot be chooser. Pag meron kang local government, kung ano dumating na investment doon, yun ang iaano mo ngayon. Kung wala yun sa land use plan, tatanggihan mo yung investment. Yun ang ayoko dun sa very strict land use plan. Kasi hindi naman yung mga local government, especially yung hindi naman prime na local government, hindi naman nila napipili kung ano investment ang dadating sa kanila. Ibig mo sabihin, tatanggihan nila investment dahil wala sa land use plan. I don't think they will do that. Kaya minsan, sayang lang yung land use plan. Diba? Kasi, syempre, any local government would want investment to come to their towns and cities. Kung hindi tumama sa land use plan, tatanggihan mo yung investment. I don't think they will do that. Kaya minsan mahirap yung land use plan, yung very strict na land use plan. We should be more practical. Kasi sabi nga namin, beggars cannot be chooser. Hindi naman tayo pwedeng mamili kung sino dadating sa atin. Kung sino dumating, itry natin na mag-invest sa atin at ayusin natin. But a very strict land use plan, mahirap yan for the Philippines. Kasi hindi naman tayo sobra-sobra investment. Merong swerte na nga may dadating sa ating investment. Kung pipigilin natin yon dahil it's not according to the land use plan, I don't think that's practical. Ako kasi, I've seen that. Siyempre, yung mga local government, gusto din nilang may mag-invest sa kanila para may income yung local government. Tatanggihan mo dahil hindi tama sa land use plan. Who are you to say that what is good for the city is based on a land use plan? Study lang yan eh. Parang ako, mas gusto ko pa na you just be practical, ayusin mo na lang as they come, di ba? Kaya hindi ako believer ng land use plan. Kasi hindi naman at your ikaw ang nagde-decide kung sino mag-i-invest sa'yo. You just have to accommodate them when they come. For the sake of the place. Kasi kung hindi mo naman sila tatanggapin, walang income yung lugar. Anyway, you just submit your position paper. Okay, we call on the Philippine Ports Authority.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm Yasmin De Los Santos. I'm the manager of the Port Operations and Services Department. PPA would like to thank the committee for affording us the opportunity to be present in this meeting and to submit our comments on the proposed legislative measures. It has been the policy of PPA that once port development, construction, and expansion are being conceptualized, planned, and carried out, the Port Authority, together with the awarded port contractor, take into account the development of an environmental management plan as part of an environmental impact assessment. An EMP is formulated to mitigate the adverse impacts arising out of port development program, including its effects on the coastal and marine environment. EO number 533, which was enacted on June 6, 2006, adopted ICM as a national strategy to ensure the sustainable development of the country's coastal and marine environment and resources, establishing supporting mechanism for its implementation. Since its enactment, PPA has been participating in various meetings and discussions on ICM and the NCGP and implementing environmental policies for the management of the coastal and marine environment, such as the following. One of the significant PPA policies that is aligned with the NCGP is the implementation of PPA Administrative Order number 14-2020, entitled Mandatory Tree and or Mangrove Planting as a condition for the issuance of accreditation, certificate of registration, and appointment or award of contract or renewal thereof. PPA is currently in coordination with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources in crafting a joint memorandum circular for the effective implementation of this AO. Further, PPA is in the process of crafting its port environmental code, which shall provide the pivotal linkage between performance in terms of port activities and PPA's environmental strategies to properly manage the port's environment. It conveys PPA's belief that environmental protection and responsible port operations are interconnected, emphasizing our shared responsibility to integrate environmental goals into our daily operations, making our ports a champion of environmental stewardship. PPEC, or the Port Environmental Code, contains provisions on resource conservation measures which are crafted to promote responsible use and management of natural resources,
Can
particularly...
I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yung sinasabi nyo na in coordination with DNR, magtatayo kayo ng mangrove, magtatanim. Saan kayo magtatanim? Where in the port?
Ma'am, actually, the policy has been implemented po since 2000. So, some of these mangroves are planted in coastal areas under the different port management offices, but the
So,
areas
not in the port.
not in the port, ma'am.
But that's your CSR.
Yes, ma'am.
Corporate. O ano ngayon ang gagawin nyo? Katulad nun, inire-reclaim yung dadaanan ng mga vapor sa inyong port. Ano gagawin nyo doon?
Ma'am, in areas under PPA's jurisdiction,
Ba't wala kayong nagawa sa Metro Manila? 'Di ba yung port nyo, South Harbor at North Harbor, inire-reclaim, nagre-reklamo yung mga vapor na wala silang dadaanan papunta sa port nyo. Ano ginawa nyo doon?
Ma'am, PPA's role kasi in the reclamation of areas outside PPA's jurisdiction is to issue certificate of no objection. So we issued the
So, ano
certificate of
ginawa niyo
objection.
To protect the port.
We provided certain post-approval conditions.
Na-issue ang
ma'am.
ECC eh.
Yes, but in so far as PPA's mandate, ma'am, we can only issue a certificate of objection with the idea
So
that
you just issue a certificate of objection?
no objection,
No?
no objection.
Did you issue certificate of no objection there?
Um,
Nagrereklamo yung mga nag-ooperate ng port na napakahirap na daw puntahan ng port kasi ire-reclaim yung paligid nila eh. O you issued a certificate of no objection?
The certificate of no objection, ma'am, is conditioned on certain requirements that should be
Mag-report kayo sa
complied.
akin. Sabihin nyo ginawa nyo doon. Ba't nyo
Yes,
pinabayaan na tambakan yung harap ng mga port? Saan dadaan ng mga vapor para pumunta sa port? Ha?
Yes, ma'am.
Hindi wala kayong ginawa doon. Hindi kayo man lang naglabi. Walang nagsalita eh.
Ma'am, there were
Wala
consultations
akong pakialam
conducted.
doon. Manila yon. Pero I'm so surprised that very dependent tayo sa mga dadating na vapor na dadating na magdadala ng mga import natin at export natin. Tapos hindi kayo kumibot. Tinatambakan yung port nyo. Shock na shock yung mga port operator na pinabayaan yun.
Ma'am, if I may, PPA in consultation with the terminal operators and other stakeholders.
Yan na
actually-
nag-issue
Yes,
ng
ma'am, but,
ECC
but if PPA has to make sure that the navigational channel is open for the entry and exit of vessels, so made sure that
Ang
safe
sabi nila,
as a
mahal-mahal
passage
daw
for
na
the vessel.
binabayad nila ngayon sa pilot kasi iikot ng very complicated. Yan ang business nyo tapos hindi nyo pinoprotect yung inyong business. Mag-report nga kayo sa akin, sabihin nyo sa akin ano reason at hindi nyo pinara yun. Ako na-shock doon. I mean, I am not the port operator. I'm just someone watching what is happening. Bakit inalaw yun? Very important sa atin yung mga vapor na yun kasi yun ang trade natin. Tapos pasasarahan nyo yung mga port nila. Pinabayaan nyo na mag-issue ng ECC doon. Yan yung coastal management. That's the real essence of coastal management.
Legal port doon sa natin. Hindi nila pinapaan.
Sino?
Meron port operation doon sa Metro Wetland.
Hindi nga, yun nga. Walang permit yun.
Hindi nila.
Oh.
It was already
Meron parada na vapor sa aming legislated protected area. Wala namang permit sa may-ari ng lupa, PRA. Tapos walang pumapara doon.
illegal port.
Illegal. Nandun yung vapor, sinisira yung kalye namin sa Las Piñas, Parañaque, Wetland Park. Palaging sira kalye namin kasi dala-dala niya yung malalaking vapor niya doon. Ay, yung malalaki niyang truck na naghahakot doon.
Ano yan, no permit
Isulat
from-
mo sa kanila.
Sinulat na ko.
Sinulat na sa inyo. Mag-report kayo sa akin. Kasi we're talking of coastal management and then wala tayong ginagawa to protect our coast. Ako, hindi ako nag-ooperate nung doon, yung port. Pero nasishock ako doon. Naawa ako sa kanila. Kasi legislated protected area. Oh, legislated protected area. Nobody is protecting. Sumulat na daw kami sa inyo.
Yung not our office, the
Yung PAMB. Yung Protected Area Management Board.
We'll take
but
a
there
look.
was no action.
We'll check, ma'am, about the letter, but we will submit, we'll submit the report as to the
Kasi pag
actions taken by
pumupunta tayo
PPA.
dito, hindi lang tayo salita na binabasa natin yung stand natin. Are we really serious in implementing, 'di ba? What we're saying. Oo. Kasi kaya nga sinasabi ko dapat ilalagay mo. Palagi ko sinasabi na ilalagay mo mga tao sa gobyerno, yung mahalang mga tao para tutulungan nila yung mga tao. Kasi kayo ang in charge tapos pinababayaan nyo yung ating bansa. O, yung DA pinababayaan yung farmer, yung DNR pinapabayaan ang environment. O, hindi tayo salita ng salita dito. We should put what we're saying in our hearts and implement natin. Oh. Kasi ako na-shock doon na ang PPA pumayag na i-reclaim yung North Harbor and South Harbor. Laking problema yun. Pag natuloy yun. Ako wala naman pakialam doon. Hindi man ako napunta sa North Harbor at South Harbor. Trabaho lang ako doon kasi tinulungan ko yung Baseco kasi there are 10,000 people living in Baseco. Tinuruan ko lang sila kasi naaawa ako sa kanila. Baka mangyari sa kanila yung nangyari sa Summer Leyte na pag nag-typhoon surge sa Manila Bay, lahat sila lumabas, madala ng typhoon surge sa Manila Bay. Kaya tinuruan ko sila magtanim ng mangrove doon as a protection. Oh, nung una nga hindi mabuhay yung mangrove kasi tinatambakan ng basura. So every week sinisermonan ko sila. Pag kayo meron pumasok sa ating Yolanda, kawawa kayo. Dadalhin kayo sa sea ng typhoon surge. Kaya lang after so many weeks na linggo-linggo bine-brainwash ko tsaka lang tinigilan yung pagtapon ng basura do sa mangrove para mabuhay yung mangrove. Hindi mabuhay yung mangrove kasi tapon ng basura do. Ayun. Naawa ako doon Kasi yun yung kumanta kasi si Manny, my husband was born in Tondo. So yung mga bata sa Baseco ang kumanta nung jingle niya nung siya'y kumandidato. So naawa naman ako kaya when I became senator, linggo-linggo na andun ako, nagtatanim ako ng mangrove, nagtatanim ako ng tawag dito, vegetable para may vegetable sila. Si Mark pinagawa yung main road nila, ako pinagawa ko yung side road nila, binigyan ko sila ng livelihood. Tapos marami akong ginawa doon Natigil lang kami because of COVID But anyway, yun ang sinasabi ko sa inyo na you put your heart into what you're doing. Yun ang sinasabi ko sa Climate Change Commission na gumawa kayo ng program na makikita sa baba na kahit maliit lang programa just to show people that our government agency is really trying to help the people in our own small way. Diba? Parang kayo. O hindi ko maintindihan why pinabayaan nyo i-reclaim yung South Harbor at North Harbor eh. Eh alam nyo na yun ang business nyo, di ba? Na-shock ako doon pero hindi ako nakialam doon kasi I'm just commenting now because we're talking of coastal management. But ako na-shock doon kasi dapat kayo PPA ang naunang kumontra doon kasi maaapekto yung operation ng North Harbor and South Harbor which is good for our people, di ba? Anyway, tingnan mo lang, sabihin mo sa akin kung paano nyo tinry na tulungan yung nag-ooperate ng South Harbor at North Harbor tsaka yung mga ibang port operator doon against this reclamation na that will destroy our coast, di ba? Because we're talking of coastal management. Okay? You just write to me and explain to me what you're doing. And sana sagutin na yung complaint namin, yung vapor do sa aming Las Piñas, Parañaque Wetland Park. Bakit ayaw pa alisin yun doon? Kasi mahirap din mag-maintain ng road eh. Sinisira nila yung road namin. I'm turning that Las Piñas, Parañaque Wetland Park into ecotourism area na pupunta doon ng mga eskwelahan, pupunta yung mga homeowner para ma-appreciate nila yung wetland park and then they be a part of the group that will take care of it in the future. Oo. Kasi I will not be here forever. So somebody has to take care of that wetland park in the future. Because that's the only one in Metro Manila and we should be very proud of it. Anyway, we'll go to the Philippine Coast Guard. Yan, kapartner namin yan sa Wetland Park, naglilinis.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, fellow public servant. So the Philippine Coast Guard supports the enactment of Integrated Coastal Management Act. One of the functions of the PCG is marine environmental protection. Although the PCG focuses more on issuance of regulations and conduct of enforcement for the prevention of pollution from ships, the PCG has resources such as personnel, divers, boats, aircrafts, laboratory, and our budget for this year, we have acquisition of remotely operated underwater vehicles project. I believe the PCG personnel and equipment can support various activities of and projects of ICM. Also, the PCG supports the enactment of National Coastal Green Belt Act.
Eh, yung ano, yung merong office dun after the Cultural Center of the Philippines, Coast Guard ba yun?
Navy yun, ma'am. Yes,
Navy, hindi kayo. Nasaan ang office? Nasaan kayo?
Sa may Pier 15, ma'am, sa may likod ng Manila Hotel, yung headquarters.
Port area kayo.
Yes, ma'am.
O tinambakan din kayo.
But, I'm not sure, ma'am.
Ko,
Yes.
tinambakan din yung likod ng Manila Hotel eh. O, tinambakan din kayo. Saan kayo dadaan pag tinambakan kayo? Ng reclamation. Hindi kayo nagreklamo.
Hindi.
O wala kayong vapor.
Meron pa, may yung docking area namin, ma'am, sa may Pier 13. Yun kasi headquarters namin is office.
Hindi nag-reclamation doon sa inyo.
May reclamation.
Hindi nila alam. Hindi kayo.
Yes, ma'am. Wala.
Hindi
kasama, ma'am, yung sa may
kasama
headquarters.
sa reclamation.
Yes, ma'am.
Paano hindi makakasama? Di ba tinambakan lahat yun? Hindi pa nag-start. Hindi nila alam. Kasi yung iba hindi nag-start pero kayo matatambakan. Hindi nyo nalaman yun. Kasi nagreklamo ang South Harbor and North Harbor. Wala ba kayo doon? Sa lugar na yon?
Sa may Baka sa ibang area, ma'am, hindi
Manila
kasi kami
Hotel
aware
is-
dun sa...
Ano yon? South Harbor yung Manila Hotel, di ba? Tapos yung North Harbor, yung pagkalampas, yung the other end. O, saan kayo doon? Sino katabi nyo?
For info, ma'am, nag-object kasi yung US kasi nandun kasi yung National Coast Watch Center.
Ano?
Nag-object yung US.
Pero tinatambakan na yung US Embassy. Nagalit lang sila kaya ipinara. Di ba? Tabi ba kayo ng US Embassy?
Hindi ma'am, malayo ma'am.
Saan kayo? Manila Hotel.
Yes ma'am, Manila Hotel
O
ma'am.
yung
Sa likod.
tatampakan ninyo? Hindi nyo alam? Kasi nagreklamo sa hearing ko Manila Hotel. Tatambakan din sila. At saka nandun ng South Harbor. Di ba? Yun ang South Harbor.
Yes, ma'am.
Yung ano yung kaya yung may-ari ng school, ICTSI. O, ano yung Port Authority na yun? Ano yung ari nung may school na harbor? South Harbor, ICTSI, diba? Nagrareklamo din yun, tatambakan daw sila. O kung katabi ka noon, tatambakan ka rin. Diba? Katabi ka ba noon, South Harbor? Kasi yun lang. Pagkatapos ng Manila Hotel, South Harbor, tapos kayo na.
Doon sa area yun.
It's Asian Terminal Inc., not ICTSI. ICTSI is in the Tondo area.
Ano?
ATI po siya, ma'am. Asian Terminals Inc., not ICTSI.
ICTSI. Na,
ATI siya, ma'am. Asian Terminals Inc.
oh,
Yung
rason yung ICTSI. Ang ICTSI North Harbor. Yung ATI is Asian Terminal is South Harbor. Nasaan siya?
sa South Harbor.
Yes.
Nasaan
May
siya?
dumping din doon.
Tabi ba siya ng ATI o ATI siguro? Ano?
Malapit sila, ma'am, sa South Harbor.
O yun nga, ATI.
Yes.
O, itatambakan kayo. Hindi nyo alam. Kaya nga pinag-uusapan natin coastal management, lahat kayo tatambakan. Wala na tayong coast. Wala na tayong coast na pinag-uusapan. Lahat tatambakan. Buti pinara because nangyari sa Bulacan, di ba? Biglang pinara. Hindi lahat nabibigyan ng notice to proceed. Anyway, so you're supportive. You take care of yourself.
Thank you, ma'am.
Philippine National Police.
Thank you, ma'am. To the Honorable Chairperson of the Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Climate Change, other distinguished attendees, a pleasant day to everyone. I'm Police Colonel Haji Balyangan, the Chief Operations and Management Division of the PNP Maritime Group. In behalf of the Philippine National Police, it is with great honor to be invited for today's meeting. The Philippine National Police Maritime Group fully supports the legislative measure to include the Philippine National Police through the Maritime Group as a member of the National Coordinating Committee. This inclusion recognizes the critical role of law enforcement in safeguarding coastal areas and addressing illegal activities that threaten marine ecosystems and coastal communities. The presence of law enforcement agencies such as the PNP Maritime Group will serve as crucial deterrent to illegal activities such as illegal fishing, poaching, and other maritime crimes. This proactive approach will not only safeguard coastal resources, but also promote compliance with the existing coastal regulations and laws, thereby ensuring the sustainable use and conservation of our coastal ecosystems. These legislative measures are essential steps towards achieving comprehensive coastal management, promoting environmental resilience, and safeguarding the well-being of coastal communities and future generations. Moreover, the PNP Maritime Group is currently undertaking the clearance in the registration of fishing vessel triggers tonnage and below. The registration requirement aims to address various coastal management concerns, such as activities of fishing vessels, habitat protections, and various coastal issues. By implementing Executive Order 305 and regulating the registration of small fishing vessels, perhaps the PNP Maritime Group is promoting sustainable fisheries management and strengthening maritime safety in the Philippines. In addition, the integration of the PNP in the NCC will also enhance coordination among government agencies that are involved in coastal management. This will bring together various stakeholders under a unified framework, enabling the development of effective strategies and actions to address the challenges faced in the coastal environment. Rest assured of our continuous support on this matter.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
To appreciate you kasi nagkaroon kami ng 300 squatters sa amin Las Piñas, Parañaque Wetland Park, and you were called by DILG to remove them, and they were removed. So thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
The Department of National Defense. Ito, West Philippine Seas.
Madam Chair, honorable members and on this environmental committee, as well as fellow public servants, good afternoon. The Office of Civil Defense manifests its full support to the bills entitled Integrated Coastal Management and the National Coastal Greenbelt Act. These bills aim to adopt a framework for coastal and marine areas that supports to achieve sustainable development for food security, poverty alleviation, advancement of sustainable livelihood, and the reduction of vulnerability and risk to hazards. We recognize that the formulation of the same shall help strengthen the overall capacity of local coastal communities and reduce their exposure and vulnerabilities to various water-related hazards. Although we welcome the institution and development of the Integrated Coastal Management (ICM) framework and National Coastal Greenbelt Action Plan, we respectfully suggest that this framework and plans be integrated to merge together to form a single set of policy. May we also suggest that the inclusion of the Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office, PDRRMO, to the Provincial Development Council, as well as the Municipal CTDRRM Office, MCDRRMO, to the Municipal or City Development Council in coordinating the formulation and implementation of the ICM plan to ensure that the ICM framework is in line with the local disaster risk reduction and management plans of relevant LGUs or provinces. Maraming salamat po, ma'am.
So you're the one in charge of the National Disaster Risk Reduction. So,
Yes, ma'am.
oh, sorry. You want it included?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Please submit your position paper.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we go to DOST.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. So while the UST PAGASA is still preparing to sign position paper, our principals are in agreement that we support the ongoing discussions on the proposed
Some of you
legislative
can eat
measure.
na. Don't, we're hungry na, so you can start eating. We'll just continue so we will finish on time. But you can take your lunch.
Yes, ma'am. Correct po. So we support the ongoing discussions on the proposed legislative measures under the
Na lang.
Integrated Coastal Management Act led by the Senate Committee on Environment, Natural Resources and Climate Change. The enactment of this proposed measure is expected to be instrumental in addressing the emerging and potential problems caused by climate change and coastal hazards in the country. This legislation shall also reinforce the mandate of DOST PAGASA on providing adequate, timely, and relevant climate and marine meteorological information necessary in the preparation of national and local action plans, particularly on climate change in the context of integrated coastal management. Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, wala ba kayong may contribute na knowledge because you're strong in technology that we can use so that we can protect our coast?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question. So right now we are preparing the roadmap for a holistic ocean forecast system. So we are seeing that PAGASA is going to implement this ocean forecast system in the next 5 years. So yun po yung ating roadmap. And then as we speak, we are currently operationalizing the storm surge forecast system para po sa buong bansa yun. So next year, hopefully the Hydrometeorology Division of DOST PAGASA is going to adopt the storm surge warning system po. And we also have the Marine Meteorological Services section, which basically provides services as regard to gale warning in the country. So
Can
may
you
dalawa pa
submit
tayong
to
section.
me yung mga plan na yan?
Yes po.
Yung storm surge, forecast, and marine, so that we will have an idea. So we can read it and have an idea of what you intend to do to help us solve our problem in the coastal areas.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We will provide that in the signed position paper of DOST PAGASA, ma'am.
Explain mo sana i-explain mo in a simple manner kasi hindi naman kami masyadong tech people para maintindihan namin. Ha?
Noted po, yes, ma'am. And then basically, one of the goals of DOST PAGASA, as regards to the ocean forecast system, ma'am, in the next 10 years, magkakaroon din po tayo ng ocean literacy program. So maliban po dun sa ocean forecast system, what we are targeting basically is to educate the people as regards to the ocean forecast system. That is why we are heading towards the ocean literacy program. And you also mentioned, ma'am, about the Indonesia case a while ago.
Oh.
So one of the best cases as regards to the ocean forecast system in the ASEAN region is the BMKG, which is basically the National Weather Bureau of Indonesia. So they have this strong ocean forecast system, which basically they provide in all regions of Indonesia, ma'am. So we are trying to replicate that kind of ocean forecast system, at least for DOST PAGASA, and hopefully we could be able to implement this in the country.
I went there tapos meron pang international airport there kasi I went to Jakarta and I flew to that island. Tapos lumubog yung island na yun. My God. It's really frightening. So if that can happen to that island, it can happen to us, di ba? So we should be very careful. Okay, we go now to the Department of Finance. Sila magbibigay ng budget.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. The Department of Finance recognizes the intent to ensure sustainable management of the country's coastal and marine environment and resources through the adoption of the ICM, Your Honor. As to the proposed tax exemption found in Section 30 of SB 216, Section 38 of SB 2397, and Section 35 of SB 1342, Your Honor, we interpose no objection considering that it is aligned and consistent with the tax code, Your Honor. Nevertheless, we will submit the department's official position paper
once we have secured the necessary clearances from our principals, Your Honor. That would be all for DIF. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we go to the academe, UP.
Magandang umaga po. I'm Charina Lynn Repolo, the current Deputy Director for Research and Development of the Marine Science Institute, University of the Philippines.
Where is the Marine Science Institute? In Los Baños or in
Inside
Diliman?
UP Diliman po.
Diliman.
So we are pleased to share our comments on Integrated Coastal Management Act and the National Coastal Greenbelt Act of 2022. So the Marine Science Institute advocates for a more integrated framework for coastal management, which includes the Coastal Greenbelt as one of the strategic interventions. However, it is not the only intervention to be considered, given the varying environmental and socio-economic conditions across different parts of the country. When considering coastal greenbelts, it is essential to identify the most feasible strategic areas for their establishment. This determination should take into account not only the geographical characteristic, but also the time required for them to become functional for coastal protection, particularly in areas where mangrove have been significantly reduced. Additionally, there is a crucial need to find ways to harmonize greenbelt initiatives with potential compatible and sustainable economic activities. This ensures that coastal management efforts not only enhance environmental resilience, but also contribute positively to local economies. An important aspect of this approach may focus on enjoining and incentivizing local government units in strategic areas to implement integrated coastal management plans. Sustained efforts from LGUs are essential for the effective management of coastal resources and the protection of coastal environments. So the timely implementation of the Integrated Coastal Management Act is crucial for addressing and resolving the issues within the coastal environment of an archipelagic nation like ours, which boosts exceptional biodiversity and resources. While the Senate bills acknowledge the biological richness and economic significance of coastal areas, incorporating certain natural phenomena such as submarine groundwater discharge can be added for a more holistic and efficient sustainable management practices.
Ano sabi mo yan? Discharge?
Submarine groundwater discharge po.
Mga boats?
Ano po yun?
Ano ibig sabihin mo? Discharge ng mga boats?
No,
Water.
discharge po ng water sa ilalim ng
where?
dagat.
From where?
So it's a fluid that pass across sediments and then lumalabas po sa ilalim ng dagat natin.
Galing yun?
So galing po yan, parang river po on the terrestrial. It's like river, but it goes through the sediments papunta sa ilalim ng dagat. So may mga ongoing studies po kaming ginagawa for that. And we think that it's also a good monitoring na pwedeng gawin din to be included in the ICM. So if I may continue, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
One of the less known but equally important pathway directly linking the terrestrial to the marine environment is the submarine groundwater discharge, which is defined as any fluid that crosses the sediment-water interface in marine ecosystem. So it is whether freshwater or recirculated seawater. Unlike river, which are point sources, SGD or submarine groundwater can permeate from shoreline and seafloor even up to the depths of marine shelves. This discharge is enhanced by porous seafloor or bedrock, like sandy sediments, cavernous limestones, fractured and faulted bedrocks, which are common coastal rock type here in the country. Considering that our archipelago is traversed
Can you
by...
write about that submarine water discharge? We cannot understand it. It's too
Yes po.
technical. Can you give us a write-up of that?
Yeah, sige po. So ito na lang po, some of the possible effects of this type of submarine groundwater discharge are algal proliferation, whether harmful species or not, ocean acidification, geochemical and substrate diversity, among others. So areas in the Philippines where this has been documented are coastal areas of Bataan, Bolinao, and Mabini. Many other coastal areas in the Philippines bear indicators of this type of fluid but have not been yet studied.
Bakit
Such as-
doon sa lugar na yun? Why in that particular place?
Because it's very evident po na merong nakikita doon sa Mabini and also Bolinao given
And
na
what's common among them?
so they observe like may bumubula pong tubig under the
Bakit
water.
nga, ano common doon sa tatlong lugar na yon na lumalabas to?
So-
Meron kayong naaaral na common sa kanila why they have this?
I think the common is that they are made of limestone, yung substrate, yung rocks, wherein they observe this type of fluid po sa ilalim ng dagat.
Disaster ba yon?
So it can, ang possible effect niya is on the biodiversity of the water. It can also bring pollutants and organic materials in the water getting into the sea po, in the coastal areas. So ito po ang possible din na pwedeng makita itong SGD sa Cebu, Boracay, Palawan, Bohol, and Medina. So kung mapapansin niyo po itong mga islands nito are limestone, made of limestone. So common po sila sa
So
mga ganong klaseng
Cebu,
lugar.
Boracay, and
Palawan, Bohol, and Medina.
Medina?
Cebu
Wala.
po, sa Cebu po ito.
Saan yung Medina?
Cebu din po ito.
Dito pa naman maraming tourist area.
Opo. So ito po kasing SGD sa aming pagsaliksik
Dapat
ay
aralan nyo ng tourism yan. Kasi
Oo.
lahat ng binanggit niya, maraming tourist dyan.
Opo. So recognition of this phenomenon as a major driver of terrestrial to marine water transport can influence policy information and management strategy, especially in areas without large river systems and with SGD contributing significantly to the marine environment. So yun lang po from the Marine Science Institute.
So we go now to the NGOs. We'll start with the Asian Center for Biodiversity. Okay. Dr. Lim, dati siya sa DNR, di ba? Biodiversity Management Bureau. Diba?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you po.
Umalis ka yata, nainis ka eh. Nagpalit mo kami sa foreign.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, for inviting the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity as one of the resource speakers in this public hearing. The ACB welcomes the proposed bills on integrated coastal management and national coastal green belts and supports some of the recommendations for the consolidation of these bills. As you know, the ASEAN region has 173,000 kilometers of coastline, in which 20% is found in the Philippine archipelago. In 2017, the Philippines hosted its first ever multilateral environmental convention conference, the 12th meeting of the Conference of the Parties of the Convention on Migratory Species, or the CMS COP12. As the delegates visited an important migratory bird habitat in Metro Manila, the Las Piñas Parañaque Wetland Park, a milestone resolution championed by the Philippines was adopted at the COP, a CMS Resolution 12.25, which recognized the importance of coastal ecosystems for the survival of migratory avian species as they travel long distances from the northern to the southern hemisphere, consequently benefiting communities relying on functioning intertidal habitats. For humans, according to the ASEAN Biodiversity Outlook 3, it is estimated that 500 million people will live in coastal and marine areas in the ASEAN region by 2050, all of whom will rely on the rich marine biodiversity for food, livelihood, protection from natural disasters, impacts of climate change, and a source of treatment against new and emerging diseases. For a mega biodiverse country with many islands, like the Philippines, its coastal areas comprise a diversity of ecosystems with multiple uses for a variety of sectors. While it is clear that coastal ecosystems are vital for species survival and human well-being, and that critically important wetlands must be protected at all costs, we also acknowledge that oceans and seas are key drivers of economic growth and innovation. An integrated and strategic approach, therefore, is required to ensure that no-go zones are respected and that development such as reclamation and infrastructure in and of our coastal areas, as well as industries upstream that can be a source of land-based pollution, will not adversely damage the ecosystem services and the biodiversity benefits that healthy mangroves, coral reefs, seagrass beds, and tidal flats can provide. A study commissioned by the BMB on the economics of ecosystems and biodiversity in the Manila Bay in 2014 and published in 2018 showed that the value of the development projects in the coastal areas increases tenfold if they take into account biodiversity in the area, including ecosystem restoration, than if a project does not consider biodiversity at all. And we will provide you that, and BMB will provide you that study, ma'am. The ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, an intergovernmental organization, and as the only
We want
ASEAN
that
Center,
study.
ma'am.
We want that study.
Yes, ma'am. As the only ASEAN Center hosted by the Philippines, would be happy to provide the studies and technical assistance in the process of consolidation and finalization of this proposed bill on ICM and Greenbelt for the Philippines, bringing experiences from other countries in the ASEAN region and from related global fora addressing similar concerns. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. So you give us that study. We need that. And of course, we call on Forestry Development Center. No. This one is Oceana.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to present the position of Oceana on the Integrated Coastal Management and National Coastal Greenbelt Bill. Please allow me also to share my slides to share with you some of the efforts that we've been doing in terms of ensuring the protection of our coastal and marine areas, especially the coastal greenbelts in the country. Oceana is an international non-government organization dedicated to protecting the world's oceans with a vision to restore the abundance of our fisheries and marine resources. Since 2014, we have been working closely with national and local government agencies and other stakeholders in the Philippines in a range of coastal concerns, such as strengthening the implementation of fisheries and environmental laws in Philippine waters, protection of marine habitats such as mangroves and corals, among others, to ensure the conservation and productivity of our oceans to feed our growing population for generations to come. Oceana fully supports the 19th Congress Senate Bills 113, 126, 127, 591, 1117, 1237, 1342, and 2397 on the proposed Integrated Coastal Management ICM Act, which includes the chapter on National Coastal Greenbelts. The significance of a specific legal framework for the rehabilitation and the protection of our mangroves forests must be emphasized in this bill. Mangrove forests are considered as a globally important ecosystem, especially when we talk about food security. They supply seafood at capacities large enough to feed millions of people because they support rich biodiversity and high levels of productivity. Mangroves provide home for numerous marine species, including fish, shrimps, crabs, shellfish, oysters, and snails, to octopus, sea cucumbers, sea urchins, and fish, many of which are permanent residents within the mangroves and can be directly harvested from within. A study found a direct relationship between the decline in mangrove resources and the decline in fish production, according to Dr. Primavera. So globally, Philippines ranked number 15 in terms of mangrove cover, and the area of mangrove habitat in the Philippines has been estimated at around 2,847.98 square kilometers in 2020, which represents a linear coverage of about 33% of our coastline in the Philippines. Equally important is the fact that mangroves provide extraordinary protection to disaster-prone coastlines because they are naturally designed to combat coastal erosion and prevent tidal surges from causing harm to human lives and property by the coast. They provide natural coastal defense against strong storm surges and floods. However, we have noted that in the Philippines, the extent of mangroves has decreased by about 79.34 square kilometers between 1996 and 2020. This is actually also will show you the slide about the global mangrove deforestation rate of about 20,000 hectares per year. And in Asia, Southeast Asia, deforestation is very serious concern. So we come here to show to you the importance of protecting mangroves. We note for a fact that there are multitude of challenges confronting mangroves, such as illegal conversion, land development, or illegal reclamation, pollution, deforestation, aquaculture, and climate change. So it is high time to create and implement science-based policies for the
Can I ask
restoration.
question? Can
Yes.
we get carbon credit for our mangrove?
For now, we are still studying this because there are certain criteria for us to be able to get carbon
So
credit.
maybe we should study that so that we will be encouraged to plant mangrove
Yes.
because we're going to get carbon credit.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
That will also show the importance of the restoration of mangroves in the Philippines because of we can have the benefits of getting possible carbon credits in the future. So the Philippine legal framework also lacks an overarching policy focused solely on mangrove protection as coastal greenbelts. With the Philippines ranking high on most number of people with high dependence on marine ecosystems, we need this bill because there will be a comprehensive and integrated framework for protecting and conserving not only our coastal areas, but the coastal greenbelts comprising of mangroves and beach forests in our coast, while at the same time, it will improve the capacities of local governments and coastal communities to manage mangrove areas and encourage ecotourism and other livelihood opportunities for the community. So the Philippines is very highly vulnerable to natural hazards, as you know, and as indicated by Dr. Lim earlier, majority of our cities are found along the coast, and Filipinos depend on natural resources for their livelihood and survival. So we are doubly susceptible to climate change impacts. That is the reason why we emphasize the need for the establishment of coastal greenbelts. This refers to at least 100-meter wide strip of natural or planted coastal vegetation extending from the seaward edge of mangroves towards land or extending from the seaward edge of beach forests towards land in cases where mangroves are absent. Its function is actually to absorb wave energy during storms, thereby reducing wave damage, preventing coastal erosion, and protecting human lives and property. So the benefits of coastal green belts are well studied, and there is science behind why we need at least 100-meter wide coastal green belt in our coastlines. So these are examples. Also, there are examples shown about how communities have been saved, as mentioned earlier by our Madam Chair, of towns being saved by mangroves because of the coastal protection it has provided. In Oceana, we have also had an initiative whereby local government units have established already through an ordinance or executive order coastal greenbelt zones. For now, there are over 84 local government units that have local coastal greenbelt zones. And if you can see the concentration of these LGUs, 84 local government units, this is actually in central Philippines, which is actually in the path of Typhoon Haiyan, Super Typhoon Haiyan before. So this endeavor has shown to us that local government units are very concerned and really emphasize the need for declaring a network of local coastal greenbelts in their areas through legal policy instruments. So let me now go to the specific salient provisions which we have already set out in our position paper. So we would like to emphasize the incorporation of the National Coastal Greenbelt Action Plan and the Local Coastal Greenbelt Action Plan, which requires that there be separate provisions to highlight the minimum features of the national and local action plans. This will enable us to support the local government units that have already issued the policy instruments and ensure that there can be immediately developed and implemented by the local government units with the necessary support and technical assistance coming from the national government agencies which are supervising the local governments. So ultimately, the proposed integrated coastal management national coastal greenbelt legislation highlights the importance of coastal and mangrove forests and the protection and restoration of these mangrove forests because it responds to the following. First, urgent demand for food and nutritional security, and second, addressing our extreme vulnerability to climate change impacts and disaster. The essential thrust of this bill is the conservation and protection of our coasts and mangrove ecosystems, not only for their value in fisheries production, a crucial fact for a country where many of its people depend upon fish for sustenance and fishing as livelihood, but also for the extraordinary protection that they provide to coastal communities and the climate crisis. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I hope you will give us your report so we can read it.
We will.
Okay, we go to Partnership in Environmental Management for Seas of the East Asia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank the committee for inviting PEMSEA to this public hearing on the two very important legislative measures. Similar to the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, PEMSEA is also an intergovernmental organization working with 11 country partners in Southeast Asia and Northeast Asia. May I request the committee to show my slides, please?
Saan? Nasaan?
PEMSEA. Okay, so anyway, while the committee is looking for my presentation, let me just proceed. So, next slide, please. Okay, so PEMSEA fully support the passage of the ICM and National Coastal Greenbelt Action Plan bills. So previous speakers have already provided the imperatives of ICM and the National Coastal Greenbelt Action Plan in the Philippines. And the Philippines has one of the longest experience in coastal resource management along with its neighbors like Indonesia and Malaysia. And the ICM practices in the country have evolved over the past 4 decades, but unlike our neighbors like Indonesia, Vietnam, we have no national legislation and institutional arrangements that's specific for coastal, and PEMSEA commissioned a study in 2018, third-party assessment to review and determine the effectiveness of ICM implementation covering 73 municipalities and cities across the country. And in relation to the point made by NEDA in terms of our international commitments as well as contributing to the global targets, our ICM practices in the Philippines is aligned with the regional and global sustainable development priorities and targets way back UNCED when the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development defined sustainable development, and the succeeding Rio Plus 10, Rio Plus 20, and the 2030 SDGs and other plans of action towards 2030, as well as our multilateral environmental agreements and commitment that where the Philippines is committed from our 40 years of experiences in ICM, CRM implementation, as well as emerging developments, as well as priorities and targets that the global and our regional plans of actions have set, where the Philippines is committed to contribute. We also support the consolidation of the National Coastal Greenbelt Action Plan bills into the ICM bills, and the provisions of Senate Bills 113, 591, 117, and 1237 can be incorporated into the ICM Act, and the two Senate Bills 1342 and 2397 already incorporated the National Coastal Greenbelt Act, including the House Bill 7767, which have gone through a very long process of review and deliberation. House Bill 7767 consolidated and substituted for similar House bills, which the Senate has a copy. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide shows the evolution of ICM practice in the Philippines. So we are promoting an integrated multi-sector and ecosystem-based management, and this has already been discussed by previous resource speakers. So what we're showing here is from the practices were started way back in the 1970s, where the regulation of coastal resource management is instituted by the national government. And then there were a number of community-based coastal resource management models that were developed through implementation of localized marine protected areas. In the 1990s, when there were a number of landmark legislations that promoted the implementation of integrated management practices, which included the local government code as well as the fisheries code, where where provisions of these two national legislations included ICM or CRM. And then in the 1990s, there was an increased local participation in coastal management, and a number of models have been generated. And we have a number of examples in the Philippines where the local governments were able to develop, implement, and sustain their integrated coastal management programs. So recently, we are now in the process of consolidating these good practices, and so we do not need to start from a very clean slate, because we already have the necessary practices as well as access to tools and methodologies. So before the ICM bill was submitted to the lower house and at the Senate, there was an executive order where ICM was identified as the national strategy for us to achieve sustainable development of the coastal and marine areas. And as a requirement of EO 533, a national ICM program was developed, and this was implemented through the Coastal and Marine Ecosystem Management Program of DENR. And now we are into the process of mainstreaming these practices, integrated coastal management practices, into the local development planning process. As already highlighted, the local governments are already required to develop 33 different plans. And so the ICM Act, the current version already promotes or facilitates the integration of the ICM planning process into the local government. And in line with our commitments to contribute to implementing the UN Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the 2030 roadmap of a number of plans of actions in support of the SDGs, as well as our commitments to the multilateral environmental agreements. So we are now also mainstreaming that or incorporating that into our practices. Next slide, please. So this shows the coverage of the ICM third-party assessment that we conducted in 2018. The map on the right shows the locations of the local government units that were covered in the study. So basically, we use a code, an ICM code, which is a voluntary standard, which incorporates the requirements of ISO 9001 and Quality Management System and ISO 14001 on an environmental management system. And it mirrors some of the early benchmark systems that were established from the previous projects of USAID, as well as the ICM rating tool of GIZ ACC Coast project. And in line with the CMEM, BMB's Coastal and Marine and Ecosystem Management Program, we anticipate that there will be a scaling up or replication of the good practices that were generated from this number of sites that have some form of integrated coastal management programs that are in place. So the study showed, as already highlighted by BMB, there are challenges, although we have existing programs as well as support from a number of partners to capacitate local governments to implement ICM. We hope that the provisions of the ICM Act and the National Coastal Greenbelt Action Plan can address those challenges. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to show the regional significance of what we're doing in the Philippines in the East Asian region, so we have a target of achieving 25% of the regional coastline covered by the same ICM practice. So what we are exposing is we have like a standard practice across the region when implementing integrated coastal management. So the Philippines is contributing at least 27% based on our estimate from the third-party assessment. Next slide, please. So, okay, I'll just skip this slide. It just shows that the ICM bill is included as one of the priority legislative agenda of the Philippine Development Plan. And it also shows how the 4 decades of ICM practice can help us refine our ICM practice. And at the same time, we are aligning our practices or mechanisms in line with the global and regional sustainable development goals. Next slide, please. Okay, so the two slides summarizes actually the sections, the chapters and the sections of the two bills, the Senate Bill 2397 and House Bill 7767, which consolidates the two bills into one. And so the provisions of the bill already provide the necessary details in terms of the coordination mechanism and implementing arrangements at 3 levels of governance from regional, national, and local. It also elaborates on the roles and responsibilities and the necessity for us to pursue an interagency and multi-sectoral collaboration. It also elaborates on the supporting mechanisms, the monitoring, evaluation, and reporting, financing, capacity development, knowledge management, and more importantly, it also include provisions on how we are going to harmonize our plan and streamlining the planning processes from national to local level. Thank you, Madam Chair. That would be all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have four remaining people to make a presentation. One is from the NGO Rare Organization and Wetlands International, and then from the UP University of the Philippines, the Forestry Development Center, and the Animal Biology Division. So 4 people, and we're ending this hearing. So we recognize now Rare Organization.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Candice Mongaya from the policy team of Rare in the Philippines. Next slide, please. So before we continue, let me introduce our organization. We're a behavior change organization that focus in conservation. And in the Philippines, we work with more than 80 coastal communities for community-based management of marine resources. And we focus on working on behavior change. So fishers will observe sustainable fishing practices like fishing at the right places at the right time and catching the right size of fish. And at the same time, participating in management measures for their communities and ensure that our community, our coastal communities are financially resilient and they have an enabling policy environment and LGUs to be able to meaningfully participate and implement their mandates. So next slide, please. Again, this has been explained very thoroughly by our experts and resource persons from the national government agencies and the academic institutions. But again, we strongly support the ICM bill and the integration of the National Coastal Greenbelt Bill. Because again, the ICM bill provides a holistic approach for rich reef strategy, and it will help strengthen the blue economy, for example, like maximizing the resource reutilization, providing green and blue jobs, especially for our fishing communities. It will provide institutional budget for the rich reef conservation. As mentioned earlier by BMB, there's an existing DBM budget circular memo on ICM. However, there's a need to really focus on its implementation and provide specific guidance for the LGUs on how to utilize that budget memo, and the ICM bill have very clear provisions on how to guide LGU on that. And also the ICM bill, which integrates the protection of our coastal green belts, aligns with our with our global commitments such as the KMGBF, the UNFCCC, and our priorities under the PDP. And more importantly, the existing provisions of the ICM bill will provide legal mandate for community-based management of marine and coastal resources. Next slide, please. So, our recommendations based on the existing draft is to continue the consolidation of the ICM bill and the National Coastal Greenbelt Bill, and in those provisions, continue to emphasize the prioritization of preferential rights for our community in the resource use, especially for food security, strengthen the capacity building at the local level, for example, like focused guidance for the local government in the implementation of the ICM, in the convening of the ICM body and the coming up of the ICM plan, and guiding the LGUs on how to access budget for utilization in the implementation of the ICM, and provide allocation of skilled technical ground staff, which has been clearly enumerated in the draft bill. And more importantly, highlight best practices, identify venues for incentive and local champions. And I'd also like to mention that we've worked with several of our partner communities, for example, in Negros Occidental and in Zamboanga, Sibugay, and these LGUs, we can show like best practices on how having an ICM plan and enacting an ordinance on ICM has greatly benefited the coastal communities, especially the fishing communities, and the protection of the marine resources. So thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, siya yung Wetland International. Iba pa yun. Iba yung Wetland. Taga-Pilipinas. Okay. You're finished? Yeah. We recognize now the Wetland International.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and colleagues and the representatives of the government agencies. Wetlands International Philippines is grateful to the committee for giving us the opportunity to share our views in these two important bills. Two important propositions of the Congress, the Integrated Coastal Management and Greenbelt Action Plan. Wetlands International is a non-governmental organization whose mandate is to support governments that are signatories to the Ramsar Convention or the Wetlands Convention. The Wetlands International mission is to safeguard wetlands for nature and for people. Wetlands are found in the watershed and the river basin. So these are rivers, lakes, swamps, mangrove forests, seagrass beds, and shallow coral reefs. Next, we support the passage of the integrated, hold on please. We support the passage of the Integrated Coastal Management and Greenbelt Action Plan. This act will provide us the enabling condition and fiscal condition for implementing our sustainable use propositions in the Philippines. We further support the prioritization of the passage of the bill to tackle urgent environmental issues, concerns in the coastal zones, and there are myriad of problems already being mentioned. However, we wish humbly to express a couple of views for the consideration of the committee and the other committees in Congress. Afforestation is the planting of trees where there were no trees before. These, we believe, should be avoided. This is not consistent with the resolution in the Ramsar Convention, where we need to conserve the coastal zones, particularly intertidal mudflats, for as habitats of birds and shellfish that are important for the livelihoods and sustenance of people. And afforestation is also another example of that can lead to, can you please go back to, afforestation can lead to bad practices, particularly planting of mangrove trees in or mangrove saplings on seagrass beds that will overtake the growth of seagrass beds. And this can lead to the loss of areas for gleaning. Can you please go back to some slides to show that? Some more, please. Yeah. So this slide shows some people living along the coast, gleaning. This is the practice of panginhas in Cebuano. What's in Filipino? They're during low tide and the intertidal area is exposed and people can wade in, they can go and with their buckets or small picks and next slide please, and pick on fish that are trapped in tide pools or crabs and sea urchins and many other organisms. Next slide, please. You can see that. Next slide, please. See this. This is a seagrass bed. Can you please go back? Seagrass bed where you can get a variety of species, including these very delicious clams, different species of clams. And these photos were just taken just over the weekend in Kauswagan, northern Mindanao. And this, if you travel along the coast of the Philippines, you can see this practice is happening almost everywhere. This is an important practice for coastal communities to be resilient during the face of adversity, especially during the face of disaster. We also wish to recommend strongly provision for the long-term protection of greenbelt. Next slide, please. And I was told by some of my colleagues that it's already there in the provisions of the bills, but perhaps it needs to be more explicit that there should be this long-term protection. The reason for this is because next slide, please. It takes a long time to restore, rehabilitate fish ponds. For instance, this one in Nulat Tula, Tacloban. We try to restore this abandoned fish pond after the Yolanda incident. In 2018, we planted some mangrove saplings. In 2020, you can see there that the trees have grown 2 to 3 meters high. In 2023, last year, it has grown to about 6 to 8 meters. So this slide show that it's possible to restore abandoned fish pond and revert it back to mangrove forest, not to its original state, but at least to its functional state that it can protect and provide this habitat for organisms and to support the coastal fisheries. This rehabilitation, though, can easily be eliminated, cleared with changes in governance or governments. So it's really necessary that we have a long-term provision in the bill or bills that will be passed. In conclusion, we wish to continue to support the committee and other committees in Congress in passing this bill and finalizing this bill. And also we will look forward to its implementation in the future. In addition, I would like to inform the committee that one of our members, next slide please, of the Global Mangrove Alliance Philippines chapter has also submitted written example of an action plan and also the rationale for having integrated coastal management in the Philippines. That's from the Zoological Society of the Philippines. Next slide, please. This is just to show some of the members in the Global Mangrove Alliance, and some of them are present here. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much. We now recognize the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands, Inc. Okay. Mr. Ulep.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands promotes the conservation and wise use of wetlands and their resources in the Philippines. The Ramsar Convention classifies wetlands into 3. The first is coastal and marine wetlands, which include mangroves, coral reefs, and seagrass beds. Inland wetlands, which include rivers, lakes, swamps, and streams. And the third are the human-made wetlands, such as fish ponds, rice paddies, dams, and reservoirs. Wetlands provide ecosystem services that are vital to human survival. Yet they are now confronted by a variety of threats, human threats, such as unsustainable development, particularly reclamation, pollution, invasive alien species, and a natural phenomenon called climate change. When wetlands are disturbed, their ability to provide ecosystem services are compromised. In the Philippines, we have more or less about 342 wetlands, and these total to about 381,778 hectares of a conglomeration of mangroves, seagrass beds, tidal flats, coral reefs, etc. And many of these are threatened by various human pressures. If we are to expect our coastal and marine areas to continue to provide the entire scope of ecosystem services for our country, we need to determine what these marine areas, coastal and marine areas, need in order to support holistic human and ecological well-being in the country. The adoption of integrated coastal management as a national strategy for the holistic and sustainable management of coastal and related ecosystems, along with the establishment of the National Coastal Greenbelt Action Plan, is a step in the right direction towards sustainable development and the wise use of biodiversity resources. Therefore, the for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands support the enactment of the Senate and House bills adopting the integrated coastal management system as a national strategy for the holistic and sustainable management of coastal and related ecosystems, and the Senate bills establishing the National Coastal Greenbelt Action Plan. These significant and highly important bills define a unified direction and transformative actions to ensure that as responsible citizens of the planet, we are upholding our obligation of protecting our coastal and marine biodiversity, which is of great importance not only to the Philippines but to the global community as well. We would like to add that as a signatory to the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands, an overarching national policy on wetlands should be enacted to augment and strengthen environmental laws and address the gaps in the wise use of and conservation of the country's wetlands. The enactment of a national wetlands policy will preclude the piecemeal proposals for singular areas of importance, since the policy will cover all of these under its umbrella provisions. These bills are currently filed at House and Senate, and we humbly request that these also be given due attention in order that a national policy on wetlands is in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now hear from the Forestry Development Center of College of Forestry and Natural Resources of the University of the Philippines.
Good afternoon. Blessed afternoon po, Madam Chair. And the Forestry Development Center of the College of Forestry and Natural Resources would like to express its support for the swift passing of the ICM and the Coastal Green Belt bills. The University of the Philippines, Los Baños, being a national university, we support policies and programs that promote integrated, holistic, interdisciplinary, multi-stakeholder, and socially responsive, programs and policies, including those that are related to coastal management. And we would like to note that this bill ensures the science-based, evidence-based, and socially inclusive goals. And we would also like to note that through this bill, it will help us future-proof and climate-proof the restoration of our coast, knowing that if we plant today, it's totally different as we see it, 30 years from now. That's why we really need this Coastal Greenbelt bill, because by 2060, it is likely, according to science, that we will have an additional of 0.5 meter or a knee-deep sea level rise. So we have to think about that by ensuring that we have mangroves and beach forests and healthy seagrasses. Then it is likely that our coast will they won't erode much because of sea level rise. Number two, this bill help us to prioritize coastal areas that are for restoration on top of many interests along the coast, you name it, development interests. But we need areas that are non-negotiable for conservation, Madam Chair. That's very important that we have this, may it be conservation for, livelihood, for ecotourism, and even for high quality blue carbon projects. So personally, I am into that kind of research direction. Your question a while ago, Madam Chair, about the blue carbon is already happening, the trading, the crediting, Colombia has started, Kenya, and in the Philippines, there are so many interests. So I think the DNR and UPLB is also assisting the DNR in coming up with the protocols and also the needed policies for all this to happen. So that is a high quality blue carbon project that we are looking, and we can take the opportunity of establishing coastal greenbelt with this kind of along with this kind of project. And lastly, we also hope, and we hope to see that this ICM and Coastal Greenbelt Bill will be able to improve the infrastructure design, let's say seawall or coastal road, that is under the principle of green-gray approach. Mangroves, they are very resilient to typhoon. They are resilient in a way to oil spill and chemical pollution. But if you change their hydrology by putting this, just a straight line of road without proper exchanges of, water from the upstream and, water from the sea, that would surely degrade them. So we see them a lot, on the field being damaged because of wrong infrastructure design. So we hope that through this ICM, we'll be able to have good designs, proper engineering design. So yeah, UPLB gladly supports this, and we'll be happy to provide our services, may it be to local government and SUCs, in making sure that these bills will be put into action on the ground. Maraming salamat po, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. We now listen to the Animal Biology Division of the University of the Philippines.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, fellow public servants. Ako po si Vic Gibson ng UP Los Baños. I recall 25 years ago, I started talking ICM to a group of fishermen in Aurora, Quezon. And today, I'm very, very happy that we are discussing the bill. Its passage will be the culmination of years of collaborative groundwork between the government and academe. It is undeniable that in the last 50 years, the exploitation of our coastal marine habitats continued in a business-as-usual scenario in majority of places in the Philippines. And the effects has been exacerbated by climate change. So recovery has been very slow. Okay, now, ICRM as a strategy is a very good tool to address this problem. First, because it improves local conditions and builds resilience. And second, through ICRM, investments on active restoration can be implemented. And this is what I would like to point out, that the provisions of the bill will pave the way for the institutionalization of capacity building, strategies in which the academe, the Department of Science and Technology, and recently the National Security Council have initiated. So we have initiated capacity building for local stakeholders, particularly citizen scientists, to contribute to assessing and monitoring living systems. Living systems are very different. It should be continuously monitored. So this bill, I think, will be a very important tool for us to have a pulse on these very important living coastal ecosystems. So on behalf of my institute, the Institute of Biological Sciences and UPLB, we strongly support the passage of this bill. And like what my colleague said, UPLB will be there to assist LGUs in the implementation of the ICM bill. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank our resource persons and guests who have shared valuable information and views. We see the wisdom of passing the ICM bills, incorporating therein a national coastal greenbelt plan, as well as other viable and sustainable practices and strategies For this purpose, we refer the bill to a technical working group led by the Office of the Chair and including DNR and other relevant stakeholders to craft the substitute bill, which will be considered by the committee to be reported out to plenary. In the meantime, we are suspending this meeting and we will go on to the working technical group. Thank you for attending. Magandang tanghali po sa inyong lahat.